Welcome everybody. Bring the palms together at the heart center. I'd like to chant the Guru mantras. This is a very powerful chant, ancient, beautiful. It really covers all the bases. And so whether you're into chanting or not, you might think it's the silliest thing in the world, or you might realize it's the most powerful thing in the world. Wherever you are on that spectrum, please suspend all disbelief and simply give yourself to this moment, to this experience, and to the chanting of these words through this sound current. Allow the eyes to close. And if you know this chant, please hum along with me. Inhale to begin. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakchat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you. I feel better. Welcome. Tonight, we're discussing the third effort of the 12 efforts, which are an adaptation in language from the original 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We'll go every week through each of these efforts. We'll unpack them. We'll develop a relationship with them, come to understand the history behind this, and also understand the reasons for the adaptation of language, and understand, hopefully, the deeper meaning of the step and the effort. And in the best of all circumstances, collectively, we get to have a spiritual experience, meaning a deep connection with the spiritual side of our own being, where we connect with the consciousness that is through everything. And that is exciting to me. So I'd like to begin with a recitation of the third step of Alcoholics Anonymous. We made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood Him. The third effort is we made a decision to focus our will and our life on connecting with and living from consciousness as it expresses itself through us. We made a decision to focus our will and our life on connecting with and living from consciousness as it expresses itself through us. So much to discuss here. If you want to look at that wording, Ashley on the Recovery 2.0 team, hi Ashley, she's just put the wording in the chat bar for those who want to read it and look at it if you're not familiar with it already. Okay. So why this adaptation of language? From the step, we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood Him. In this day and age, many people have, first of all, a fundamental challenge in reading this step because, number one, it mentions the word God, which carries a lot of weight, confusion, stigma, misunderstanding, history, trauma, and prejudice. There's a lot of prejudice, a lot of confusion, a lot of trauma around that word. There's also a lot of power and a lot of meaning for people who like that word and have developed a relationship with that word. Many people who struggle with addiction come to the 12 steps, however, with religious trauma, with confusion about God, with a misunderstanding about their relationship with the world, with people, with the planet, and with consciousness itself, or with God, or their sense of spirit. And many people have come to recovery, seen those words, and left. I can't do this. I'm not going to be a religious person. This feels like a cult to me. I don't want to become one of those people. Like, these are the things that I've been hearing for the last 30 years since I originally got sober. Like, a lot of trouble around this word. People have a second fundamental problem. Many people have a second fundamental problem here. When a gender, in particular, in this case, a masculine gender, is applied to the word God. We made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood Him. That challenge in that reference of gender reference brings up, a lot of questions about patriarchy. It brings up a lot of questions about equality. And it basically presents a perspective, which is a gender reference to God, which is naturally, just in terms of holistic viewpoint, totally incorrect. God has to either be everything or nothing. Therefore, if God is nothing, then certainly it has no gender. If God is everything, then certainly it has no gender. Whatever that is, it's not about gender. So any attempt to ascribe a gender reference to the Almighty, the Infinite, Great Spirit, is coming from perspective, somebody's opinion, somebody's perspective. And it's important to realize that. Now, here's something that I need you to open your mind to. There's nothing wrong with having a perspective. If you feel comfortable with the idea of ascribing a male gender to God, a female gender to God, no gender to God, both genders to God, that's wonderful. There's no problem with that. No problem at all. You are to develop a relationship with the unseen. You are to develop a relationship with God. You are to develop a relationship with the spiritual world. You are to develop a relationship with all that is or not. You see, we're talking about something that's formless. We're talking about something that has no form. If it had a form, we would be able to perceive the form, but we can't. It's formless. Never born, never dies, constant. It's just formless. So it's important for us as human beings in our decision to try to relate to this thing, and we'll get into why we would make such a decision in a moment. It's important for us to have a form to relate to the formless. So we're talking about something that cannot be seen, cannot be grasped, cannot be touched. How will we relate to it? We're so limited in our 5 sensory nervous system. How will we relate to that which cannot be fully grasped? We'll have to choose a form to relate to the formless. It helps us. So if somebody in a Christian approach to trying to relate to God uses a masculine pronoun or any other pronoun, I have no problem with that. If someone in a pagan tradition, a Jewish tradition, an Islamic tradition, a Sikh tradition, a Jain tradition, a Zoroastrian tradition, or any other tradition ascribes whatever pronoun they feel correct, or uses whatever form they need to use to relate, to try to build a relationship with that which cannot be fully grasped. I personally am perfectly fine with it. What we're talking about here is that a book got written which was heavily influenced and drew from Christian theology. And the purpose of the book was to help people recover from alcoholism. And later on, many other books got written to help people recover from other forms of addiction. And it used this language. We made a decision to turn our life, our will and our life, over to the care of God as we understood Him. Now again, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing right with that. It's just a perspective. And what we are asking ourselves in this community of Recovery 2.0 is to move beyond belief into direct experience. Into direct experience. So when we talk about the step, we can take a step back from gender. We can take a step back from even the word God. And we can run those words through our filter of direct experience. What have you experienced directly in this world? Have you been paying attention to your experience? Have you recognized the ways that the unseen world, the spiritual realm, plays a role in your life? Have you actually noticed? Have you attuned yourself to the subtlety that would be required for you to notice how the unseen world plays a role in life? If not, maybe you haven't been able to catch it. Maybe you got distracted or were particularly caught up here in the world, in the physical world. to the extent where you are unable to hear the more quiet whisperings of spirit. This is not a comment of judgment. This is provocative for us. We have to ask ourselves these questions. Because we choose a form to relate to the formless, we're being given an opportunity. Because in that original step, it says, as we understand him. It's the as we understand that's the important part for me. I can run the word him through my own filter of direct experience. My direct experience of God is genderless. Therefore, I can read the step and it doesn't bother me. Because I just take the word him and I know that it's not a problem. I can change it, I can shift it, I can make it work for my conception, my direct experience of the spiritual realm. I can take the word God with all of its history and all of the images that conjures up. For most of us, if we're honest, the word God is gonna bring up some form of some memory around religion, some history around religion, something difficult about religion and the way people and human beings behave around that word, with churches and mosques and synagogues, on and on and on and on, with all the difficulty that's been caused, the separation between people who believe different things around that word. So we have a lot of these things going on in our mind, but here's the thing. My direct experience of the spiritual realm has shown me that there is a generating force in the universe, a generating force. In other words, I look out my window right out here, and I see a bunch of trees, a hedge. I see an automobile. I see a road there. I see a lot of rocks, plants, and I know that there's a force that is behind creativity that made all of that happen. Some force in the universe generated that, all of it. And no human being could say, oh, that was us. We generated that. Oh, we generated all those trees and plants. Oh yeah, you might have put a seed in the ground, but you sure don't know how to make that seed grow into a tree or a plant or anything else it's going to become. You have no capability to do that. None of us do. You might have trimmed a hedge, made it look a certain way, but you're not responsible for what's going to create in that sense of creation. You could say, well, we laid the pavement in that road or we built that automobile. Yeah, but you weren't responsible for the molecule, the atoms, the molecules, the chemicals, the things that had to come together in order to create materials that could show up in the form of an automobile. You don't have that power. Do not have that power. None of us have that power. So I notice there's a generating force in the universe through my direct experience, my direct observation of life. I also know there's an organizing force in the universe. It organizes things into systems, into ways that things work. The way molecules and atoms circle one another. The way that certain things are attractive and other things are repulsive. The way space works, the way time works. The way things are organized in our body, in our nervous system, in the world and in the galaxies and in the universe. I know that I'm not that force. There's something organizing. There's an organizing principle. I know that there's a destroying principle in this universe. I know that everything that comes into form eventually will go out of form, or at least it will change shape. It will change form. Everything that comes into time has to be destroyed eventually. Everything that comes into time has to be destroyed eventually. That is the law. That is the rule. That's how things work. And I know that I'm not the one responsible for that transformation of a matter from one form to another. Now I can take an ice cube and I can put it in some hot water and I can watch the ice cube melt. So you could say, oh, you melted that ice cube. Okay, but I'm not responsible for atoms coming together and falling apart. I'm not responsible for things changing shape. I don't have the power. That's not mine to be able to do. I can manipulate and I can change things, but I can't do at the atomic level. I'm not destroying things. If you follow me here. So G is the generating principle, O is the organizing principle, and D is the destroying principle. That's God to me. I see it and experience it every day. I am aware of it. I'm aware that I'm part of it, but I can't control it. I'm aware that I have energy and actions that I must take as an individual, but I do not have the power. The outcomes are not mine. The actions can be, but the outcome is not mine. That's why they say lay it all at God's feet, the successes and the failures. Lay it all at God's feet, because we're all really actually doing the best that we can, given the consciousness and our awareness at any given point in time. Okay, so I hope you're following me. I know this is heady stuff. The point is that I can look at the word God and see the words as we understood him. And I can change all that immediately in my mind into language that works for me. So the third step, we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood God. See, what I'm doing is I'm keeping the spirit of the step in my mind, but I'm changing it to work with my direct experience. Now, here's the thing. When I got sober, I didn't have this direct experience. And most people don't. When I got sober, I was, first of all, a very young man, very little experience. I certainly had concepts of the divine or great spirit. I had experienced some pretty magical and amazing things in my childhood and my adolescence. But I definitely didn't have the direct experience that I'm trying to describe to you now, and most people do not. It dawned on me that it would be a good idea to try to create some language around this step that could help someone to access the beauty and the magic of it, because it's so incredible. So that's why I wrote, we made a decision to focus our will and our life. So that's the first change. Rather than saying we turned our will and our life over, turn my life over, turn my will over to God. It's semantics, really. But the reason I changed it from turn it over to focus. So we made a decision to focus our will and our life. Why? Why focus instead of turning it over? Because it speaks to an action that we have to take. If we turn something over, then there's this sort of thing in the human mind. I'll turn it over, and then there's nothing else that I can do about anything. There's like in the back of our mind, some people have said this to me, and some people understand the step this way. I turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Now there's just really, I'm out of the picture. And that's not a complete picture, in my opinion. We still have something we need to do. And so focus, to me, kept our involvement. It keeps an element of our participation in this thing called God, in this thing called the universe. We are not separate from it. We participate in it. And in point of fact, it's working through us. It's working through us. So to focus our will and our life is an interesting idea. It says we made a decision that we would do that. Now, focus means necessarily that we're going to be working in the realm of mind, the mind. What are we focusing? Our will and our life. Okay, in order to do that, we're going to have to train the mind. If you're really, really gonna turn it over, if you're really gonna focus your will in your life, there's an action you're going to have to take. And this is at the centerpiece of being a human being. This goes so far beyond just addiction or a person who has struggled with addiction. This is all of humanity. Have you noticed what the problem is for us? It's the mind. The problem is the mind. What's in here translates to what's out here. If you don't like what's out here, the only recourse is to work in here. And then your actions, the energy that you expend, will naturally bring about a better external representation of your inner world. It's simple, but we make it so complicated. The simple thing is this. If we understand that the problem is our mind, and we're asking for focus, how do we develop focus? We have to begin to train the mind. So we have to be able to actually hold our attention on something. And so what we're talking about here is the science of meditation. We're talking about the science of meditation. This is where we're going to be able to develop the focus. What are we focusing? Our will. Our will is our inclination. Our will is our intention. Our will is our energy. I'll focus my energy and my life on what? So we made a decision to expend our energy, to focus it on connecting with what? Well, we're going to connect with it. It's called consciousness. It's called consciousness. Consciousness itself. What in God's name do I mean by that? Let me break it to you down like this. There's a very, very powerful spiritual teaching. It has been around for a long time, and I will pass it on to you now. You may have heard it already. Open your mind. Open your heart to it. When I say that to you, I say it to me also. So imagine there's a tree in front of you, and you're looking at the tree. And on the tree, in this visualization, is a bird on a branch. And you notice that the bird is doing its thing. This birdie is building a nest. It's getting little twigs, little pieces of dirt and twine and different plants, and it's making a nest. Very busy, very intentional. And the birdie is just constantly at work, doing its thing, doing what it feels a birdie needs to do. And it has identification with its activity. The birdie is building a nest. It's a mother. It wants to take care of its little baby when it comes. It's going to build a comfortable nest, and it's going to make sure the nest is perfect. And there's an identification with those roles naturally. A little higher on the tree is a second bird. And the second bird is watching the first bird. And the second bird watches the first bird. And the second bird has no judgment, no analysis. Just simply watching this bird, this first birdie with all of its activity. The second bird is exhibiting no activity, just watching the first bird. It has no identification with activity. It's only simply aware of what is as it watches the first birdie. These two birds are two aspects of you. These are two aspects of your being. The first aspect, the first birdie, is you in the world. You doing all that you do. Your busyness, your building, your creativity, your fixing, your breaking, your spontaneity, whatever it is, all the roles that you play. That's the first birdie. The second birdie is this bridge to ultimate consciousness. But we'll stay with the second birdie and not worry about ultimate consciousness right now. The second birdie is the part of you that's not in the world, not engaged in activity, but it watches you. It just simply watches. And it's a part of you. It's in you. It's always been in you, always been with you. When we begin our meditative practice, we want to become aware of the second bird. We don't want to ignore or blow off the very important activities of the first bird, because the first bird is in this world. The second bird is observing the first bird be in this world. And so what we're doing is we're developing a holistic perspective on our own being. We are literally connecting with our witness mind, our awareness, a greater sense of consciousness. Do you understand? So this is the thing. We're looking at, not saying the first birdie is in any way wrong for being active and being in the world. The first birdie is doing what it feels it needs to do. But the second birdie is often neglected, forgotten. And without bringing your awareness to the second birdie, there's an aspect of you that is left out. And as you bring your awareness into the second birdie, you start to develop a more holistic understanding, a visceral experience of wholeness within yourself. So the directive is learn to meditate. And we do this in the Recovery 2.0 community. We do it in the live classes when I'm teaching them and when others teach them. And we're doing it, and there's just a ton of yoga classes and experiences and meditation experiences that you can access within the membership community. And we're going to be doing quite a bit more of this and making more of it available to you. So what we're saying here in this third effort is, in order for you to access the power of this effort, in order to access the power of the step, in order to, connect more deeply with God or consciousness or whatever your idea or word is for that, whatever your form of the formless is, in order for that to take place, you're going to have to train the mind. You're going to have to work with this mind and point it in the right direction and develop the capacity for focus. Now, I would ask you this. Do you feel that in our world today, we are encouraging focus? Or would you say we're moving away from focus? What do you guys think of that question? Yeah, that's what I'm getting. Everybody knows it. So, do you feel like we're having more challenges in the world right now or fewer challenges in the world right now? Okay? So you see my point. It's gotten to the point where I can say with confidence, it is a personal responsibility, a requirement for each of us to meditate every day. It's an absolute responsibility if one wants to engage more skillfully in the world and bring about positive change. It just simply is that. So we made a decision to focus what? Our will, our intention, and our life, right? This is going to become an aspect of our life on connecting with and living from consciousness as it expresses itself through us. Since we are not separate from the universe, but we are a part of it. It influences us. It runs, the consciousness of the universe runs through us. And we are a part of it. So it's going to express itself through us. When? Through our attunement, through our awakening. Through our awakening. This is how it's going to take place. The step says, we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood God. Okay. As I mentioned, I can make that work for me. But this language here in the third effort might be helpful to some people that have struggled with that third step. And remember, the whole point of writing the efforts was simply to create language that could be supportive to somebody who wanted to have this kind of a spiritual awakening. They talk about, my sponsor always told me when I did the third step, we do the third step prayer. And there's each of the steps really has a prayer, but I think, forgive me for not knowing offhand, but 3 or 4 or 5 of the steps actually have a prayer in the book. But you can see that there could be a prayer for every one of those steps. And the third step prayer is very powerful. Here, let me get it for you. God, I am yours to do with and to build with as thou wilt. Hang on, let me pull it up so I get it right. Forgive me for not knowing it offhand by heart. I know many of you will know it. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, here we go. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Now for me, again, with the third step prayer, I can make that prayer work for me because I can run it through the lens of my personal experience, my direct experience. And then I can understand it. I can access it, and it doesn't threaten me or bother me the way it might have when I was first getting sober. But, for example, relieve me of the bondage of self. All I need, that sentence immediately becomes for me, please don't let me get stuck in my negative mind, because that's where I'm in bondage. So immediately I'm just like, I don't care, religious words, whatever. I'm Christian. I'm not Christian. I'm Jewish. I'm not Jewish. I'm Muslim. I'm not Muslim. It doesn't matter. What I'm after is the truth. And the only way I can get there is through my own direct experience. And so I'm just able to take these words, and I want to encourage you and invite you all that as you look at the third effort, that the third effort should have a prayer, and the prayer should be specific to you, your words that make sense to you, but that express the idea of focusing one's will and one's life on connecting with consciousness. So just right off the top here, great spirit, generating, organizing, destroying principle of the universe. I see that you run through me. Please guide me so that I can take the right actions and we can do some incredible shit together. This would be my prayer, right? Keep me out of negativity. Keep me out of my negative mind. so that I can really show up and have more energy to do this incredible stuff we'll do together. And take away my difficulties so that I can stand as an example of victory to someone else who has suffered in the same way I have. And then I can share my energy, my love, my power, your love, my energy, with other people. May I always remain aligned and in awake state. May I always remain aligned with consciousness. Now that was off the top, and forgive me my sloppiness and a little profanity made it in there, but hey, not a bad first shot at it. And remember, it's just supposed to work for me. Those are my words. We're all asked, if you have a conscious sponsor, it says in the book, in the original book, the Alcoholics Anonymous book, it says, you should choose words that work for you, but which express the general spirit of surrender, the general spirit of, yes, I understand that I must take actions and that I must let go of outcomes. I understand that I'm not the one in charge, but that it is my job to find a way to enter universal flow. And the decision that has been made here, we should just clarify on that for a moment. And then I will go to Q&A. If anybody has questions, I would love to answer them. Please drop them in the Q&A feature right here on the Zoom portal. Q&A, use the Q&A feature. Okay. Decision. So the word decision, we'll break it down to its Greek root. Decise. Decise means to cut away. To cut away. Why is it hard to make a decision sometimes? Because you're going to let go of something. You have to give something up. So to make a decision means necessarily, well, I'm going to move in this direction, but I've got to release that direction. That's the problem. Otherwise, there'd be nothing hard about making a decision. We're cutting away something. In this case, with the effort, what are we cutting away? We made a decision to focus our will and our life on connecting with and living from consciousness. This means we are cutting away our disconnection. We are cutting away our whatever we are conscious of in terms of addiction. If we have addictive behaviors, we know it's going to keep us at a distance from consciousness. So it has to go. If we're really focusing our will, that means we're going to let go of our lack of focus. That means we're going to wake up and be conscious each morning and do our sadhana practice each morning, do our practices each morning to the best of our ability so that we can live and exist on this playing field of God consciousness, or in the case of this effort, consciousness. We want to be conscious beings. And that's the purpose of this life, is to wake up and to be conscious, and then to live from that consciousness. So all we're saying here is, yep, got it. That way, pain. This way, fulfillment, freedom, love, bliss, destiny. Let's do that. That's all we're saying here in this third effort. That's really all they were saying in the third step. It was just coming from a Christian standpoint of, we turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood God. As we understood gives you a little leeway there. So they were saying, yes, this is Christian language. And yes, we're ascribing the word him to God. But you can look at God and you can think about God in any way that you so desire. And I was given a lot of leeway around this. Thank God, because I wouldn't have been able to accept these teachings and to begin to learn if someone hadn't given me the space to have a direct experience. Otherwise, I could have remained in belief for my entire life. And let me just say this, and I hope that you get it. You don't want to believe in God for your entire life. You want to know it. You want to know it. And you want to come from it in your life. Just like saying, you don't want to be unconscious your whole life. You want to be conscious, and you want to live from that conscious place. That's all this is saying. We're making a decision to cut away our unconsciousness, to cut away our lack of focus, to stop squandering our energy in wasteful, ridiculous places, and to really start to focus. We'll begin to develop a meditation practice and develop the capacity for focus and have a direct experience of the connection that is pretty much guaranteed for anybody who truly, earnestly seeks. And that's called yoga, by the way. Yoga means union or connection. And so why yoga on the path of recovery? It's all the same thing. Yet again, it's just words. Yoga has a physical practice which helps us along, a breath practice which helps us along tremendously. And ultimately, yoga lands us in meditation. Yoga and meditation are, in a sense, synonymous. It's the same thing. So that's what I have to say on the third effort. I hope you understand the reasons why I decided to write it, the inspiration behind it, how you might be able to use it, the different nuances of language, and hopefully you understand the weight of this, because this is something that could be tremendously helpful as we go through this path of discovery together. Because I am not sitting here asking you to believe anything. In fact, I'm inviting you and encouraging you to have a direct experience. And you can do that anytime you sit still and begin to turn your gaze inward. And maybe it's as simple as following the breath at first, and then feeling the sensations through the body. And then coming into an understanding that the mind is always going to be doing its thing, like the first birdie. The mind is always going to be doing its thing, like the first birdie. But as we begin to develop that relationship with the second birdie, we can step into a conscious observation of the first birdie. And the busyness and the attachment to the world, the attachment to our identity, can release its grip a little bit. And we can enter a place of equanimity, calm presence. Be responsible but not reactive. Responsible but not reactive. A little more kind. A little more loving. A little more forgiving. A little less violent. A little less negative. A little less sad. And we begin to enter this beautiful space. And it's called presence. And it feels like gratitude. And the words that go along with it are, oh, thank you. And you don't need to know what you're saying thank you to, because it's just purely an energetic expression of thanks. This is cool. So there are 7 questions here. I want to cover them. We have 9 minutes to go. Would you please all stay here for the next 9 minutes? We're going to stop right on the hour. Please stick around so we can pray together and express our thanks to the consciousness through all things. Yeah? Okay. All right. All right. So Kathleen K is in the room, and she asks a very important question. I want everybody to listen very closely to this. Kathleen says, how do I start to let alcohol go? Is it just a decision? It seems so hard to let it go. So Kathleen K, thank you so much for your courage in asking this question. One way that you'll be able to start letting alcohol go is by doing exactly what you just did, which is to tell the truth and to speak honestly. And I'm so touched and moved by your question. The way that I was able to start to let alcohol go was to start going to meetings every day and to raise my hand in those meetings and to tell people what was going on with me. And soon thereafter, I asked them, can you help me by taking me through the steps or the efforts, however you want to view that? Someone in this community can help take you through the steps, Kathleen. And what you can do is go to one of the Recovery 2.0 meetings. So Ashley will put that link right now in the chat bar. It's r20.com/meetings. And we have meetings 7 days a week, multiple times a day. There's the link right there in the chat bar. Kathleen, I want to encourage you to come to our meetings. Please let us know who you are and let us help you. Let us help you. Let us support you. And by you just continuing to be honest, you're going to be able to begin to get a day behind you and a day behind you and a day behind you, one day at a time. But the key is to come out of isolation and to really work with a community of people. And if you find that the meetings are helpful to you, wonderful. And if you want to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, I also strongly encourage that. It's wherever you feel most comfortable. That is the most important thing. And a lot of people in the room here will be in those meetings, so they will be able to see you. So that's my biggest suggestion for you is please, as soon as you can, come to meetings. They're online, so you can get there easily. And in terms of the danger of addiction and alcoholism, if you find that you're in trouble, meaning you're in any kind of self-harm concern, you think you want to hurt yourself in any way, or you're concerned about letting go of alcohol because you've been drinking so much that it might be hard on the body, then I strongly suggest you write me an email to support@r20.com and ask me to help you find a treatment center where you could get inpatient treatment and get support in the way that you might need. So I leave it to you to assess, how bad is this thing? Obviously, it's bad enough for you to ask this question. So I want to make sure that you get the support that you need. So please reach out to us. You can even do it here. Maybe people in this meeting would be willing to reach out to Kathleen K. She's in this meeting right now. So let's send her some love. All right. Paulette is asking, okay, great. But what does that have to do with my addiction? How is connection keeping me sober? Addiction this is a great question, Paulette. Thank you. Addiction really is, to a great extent, disconnection. Disconnection. Disconnection from one's own heart. Disconnection from one's own dreams. Disconnection from people. Challenge in relationships. Disconnection from purpose. Disconnection from consciousness itself. What we have found is that by restoring that connection, the addiction heals. The addiction, one recovers from that addiction. And here's this part where I'm not going to be able to convince you of this. I'm not going to be able to convince you of this. What I'm going to ask you to do is on faith. Do the things that we ask you to do. And see for yourself what the experience is. So hit 90 meetings in 90 days. Make that commitment to yourself. Start with 1 tomorrow. But one day at a time, make recovery the focus of your life. And you will find great things come to pass for you. I hope that answers your question. I'm so glad you asked it. And I understand that, how does connection keep you sober? I get it. The question is how does disconnection keep you not sober? Maybe you could work from there. Okay. Tracy asks, I'm so busy with life and my special needs son. My meditation really is the stress one, calm one, stress and calmness. And it's the 11-minute version of Sata Nama Waheguru and Hami Hum Brahm Hum. That's beautiful. Are these okay bridges for starting meditation? Because I am really trying. Yes, Tracy, very good bridges. And I would just say, sit for a few minutes in silence after those meditations and connect with yourself. Simply become the second bird. Be aware of it. Be aware of your mind. Be aware of your breath. Be aware of your being. From that conscious place, connect with that. And that's what we'll do. And you'll see great, great, great things come to pass there. Progress comes quickly. Pamela's asking, are the pranayamas, Kundalini style breathing, healthy for lungs and heart? If done correctly, absolutely. The pranayama exercises are incredibly good for the lungs and the heart, especially the long, deep breathing and breath of fire is wonderful, wonderful, if done correctly. Yes. At some point, Jen is asking, at some point, can I give you the Recovery 2.0 wording for the traditional third step prayer? Yes, I would take a crack at that. Again, I want you guys to be able to choose wording that feels good for you, but I would be more than happy to give a version of the third step prayer if you want to look into that. Ashley, could you remind me to do that? And then Naomi, last question here. I find these efforts to be of utmost value to me as a sponsor of others. I am not so blind as to miss their value to me, but wowie, this will be helpful working with others. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Naomi, thank you for your work and working with others. And I'm so glad these efforts can be helpful to you. That makes it all worth it for me. Your comment right there, that makes it all worth it for me. So thank you so much. Okay, you guys, let's bring our palms together at the heart center. Allow the eyes to close. Take a deep inhale and a full exhale. Let's close with the Recovery 2.0 prayer. Inhale to begin. Universe, put me in the places you want me to be, with the people you want me to be with, doing the things you want me to do. Thank you for the joys and challenges of my life. Amen. Satnam and love to each of you.